nice little dance move you had there. It was really good. It was really, really good. I love it.
I mean, I do pride myself on my dance moves. I'm a bit of an enigma with these one of a kind.
Thrusts, pumps. Is that what we call them in the club? The
I don't even know. I have to say my clubbing experience, even in my youth, was very scarce. There was not much to be had, but I did once have a very high guy come through the crowd and just grab me and be like, "You're the most beautiful dancer I've ever seen." So I've held on to that my whole life, random bar guy. Thank you.
as you should, as you should. That is the highest compliment. Were you just out there vibing? Like, is it like a mythical experience when you're out at the club, or are you thrusting?
I'm just being a fool. Have you ever seen do you know Benny, the New Zealand artist?
I can't say that I do. I
You know the
cannot.
super lonely chick?
I
I'm gonna
can't say
send
that
you
I
that
do.
song. I'm gonna educate you today. No, you know how she dances just like kind of goofy, like I know I can't dance. And when I was younger, I just wouldn't because I knew I couldn't. And then as I got older, I just did whatever I wanted.
I like that.
Just
I
let
like.
your body move to the flow. So apparently High Guy liked it. That night I was like just vibing. So the
Yes.
free spirit.
Just vibe it out. I can still picture it now. I still see you out there.
I actually forgot to send you girls into Snoop Kitty chat the other day for a riding break. I just got up and I was doing my worst dancing to my favorite song, WAP. I made a video to send you girls, but I completely forgot. So
Well, you
you'll
have to
see.
send it. You have to send it now, and I'm sure our listeners want to see it too. Um, I love how you call it WAP. I really love that.
What do you
Yeah.
call it?
WAP.
WAP. That's it,
Yeah.
not the censored version.
No, it's the same. But I think it's just an American Australian thing.
The A, you say oh, I say ah.
Yeah. I like some WAP. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Gosh, what a beautiful song that is, you know?
It just fills me with joy.
You know what though? Me too. Like
Yeah,
when I'm in the car and that song just comes on, it just brings out just the inner goddess. You know
right?
what I mean? It
How
does.
much of the rap do you know? Come on. Do you know?
I don't I do I don't I can't say I know much of it. Do you know the
I know most of it.
can you give us a rendition? Can you give us an Australian rendition of
I
WAP?
can, but you can't look at me while I do it.
Okay. All right, go.
I said certified freak, 7 days a week. Wet ass pussy, make that pull out get weak. Yeah.
That was it. No, you're going.
No,
You're
I'm
still going.
still going.
Okay, okay. Go, go, go.
I can't do the rest. I'm too shamed.
No, no. It's so good. It's so good.
I have to learn the Megan Thee Stallion parts, but I know most of the Cardi B parts. What? Am I saying it weird?
It sounds great. I love it. Megan the Stallion. Yeah, no, I love it. I love it.
Is she in it as well?
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure she
Yeah,
is. I'm sure. I love her. I love her so much.
same.
Well, welcome welcome to Of the Publishing Persuasion, our dear, wonderful, glorious listeners. We've decided to now, if you are listening to this while you are at home and there is ample beverages around, every time we say glorious or yes, you need to take a shot. Melanie was listening back, and the amount of times she said glorious on the show was a glorious amount, I believe, Melanie.
Yes, you are correct. I very nearly felt like I need to cut it out of my vocab. I blame you. You're the one who started saying it, and I'm just like that. When my friends say something, I tend to pick up vocabulary and like manner of speaking, just I absorb it. So I blame you because you started saying glorious. I think we should also add to the drinking game, drink every time we bring up Big Magic.
That's a good one. Yeah, I have to agree.
Time Smokey walks past, got a drink. Anytime I coin a quote, got a drink.
I think everybody's going to be hammered by the end of every episode because, yes, glorious. Yes, we're mming to our guests. It's Smokey
Is that
goes
your
by.
thing that you say a lot?
I feel like I do, and I keep trying to catch myself not doing it because you know how like the audio will cut like to whoever's talking, and so I don't want it to cut to me going yes. Mm-hmm.
I do it too. And to be honest, when I edit, it's the hardest part to edit, me and you. Ming, but we both do it. But I also feel like it's so good natured. It never bugs me either. It's like sometimes I just have to cut it out, or sometimes I just leave it. But I just feel like it's the mark of a good conversation. It flows together. We include the person. So I think don't worry about it.
Well, good. Hallelujah. Yes. Thank you.
Yes. How are you today?
I'm good. Just busy with just like life stuff. And so I haven't got to work on my stuff too much, but I did a little bit just before we got on. I was working on my beat sheet that you sent and shared.
Yes.
So I was like kind of marking out the fun and games situation. So I'm doing good. How about you?
Yeah, I did that and I started doing the Diane Wynne Jones. I posted that on our thing today and honestly like I'm loving it. It's kind of didn't Friends do that? Like the episode the one that Friends did it. I'm sure someone else calls it the Friends outline. The one where blah blah blah. In this case, it's like in which this happens and you go chapter by chapter. So I had chapter 1, crap coffee and dead boyfriends, in which Sephora travels across the country to elicit the help of a questionable witch to try raise her boyfriend from the dead. So it's just like a little snapshot of that chapter. I mean, that's all I've done so far. So
hey, but that's gold right there. And that sounds so just enticing and good. So yes, in which. Okay, I'm gonna start doing that too because I really, really like that. I don't know if mine will be as clever as yours, but I'm gonna try because that was really good. Are we gonna battle this out?
We're gonna battle. We have to have the best title, the best in which chapter thingy, whatever.
Oh,
and we'll send it to each other and we can give notes on that. Because the thing is, I went back and looked at my skeleton thing and I was like, okay, the first part, I've already written 10,000 words and I actually love those first 10. So I'm not going to really change anything there. So that's why I kind of started doing this first until I get to the point where I'm going to change things and I need to revamp this other skeleton. Then I'll stop doing this and fix the beat sheet.
I love. Okay, that'll be fun. We should I'm here for it. So, and I'm also here for the amazing guests that we are about to have on. We haven't spoken to her yet, so I'm gonna manifest right now that I'm not gonna embarrass myself because I am a super fan.
You're a super fan. Yeah, I didn't know that.
I mean, I've only honestly read one of Nisha's books, which is Dating Dr. Dill, but it was one of my favorite books last year. It was just like, just the romance, just everything, the angst, the miscommunication, just everything. So I will read anything Nisha Sharma has. So I'm manifesting right now. I'm going to be cool during this interview.
And if you're not, it's cool. You're like you say Zoraida's episode is like your most embarrassing, but it's like I think it's so funny. Like it's so cute. So if it happens, it happens. Like she'll be honored that you fangirl over her, you know?
I hope so. I really
But you're gonna be fine. You're a pro.
Yes. Yes, I am. I am professional. And we're just taking it as it goes. And I know you're a professional and do a fantastic job of reading our guests' bios.
Is that right?
So that's
I will do the bio today for you, my friend. I don't know why I'm talking in like an ancient vampire voice.
I don't know, but it works for you.
So, Nisha Sharma is the critically acclaimed author of YA and adult contemporary romances, including My So-Called Bollywood Life, Radha and Jai's Recipe for Romance, the Singh Family, the Singh Family Trilogy, and the If Shakespeare Was an Auntie series. Oh, that sounds amazing. I need that right away.
I'm pretty sure that Dating Dr. Dill is one of those, but I'll ask. But go ahead. Sorry, go on.
No. It sounds so clever. Her books have appeared in the New York Times, the Washington Post, Cosmopolitan, Entertainment Weekly, and more. She lives in Pennsylvania with her Alaskan husband, her cat Lizzie Bennett, and her dog Nancy Drew. You can find her online at nishasharma.com or on TikTok and Instagram at Nisha Writes. So yeah, Angela's a big fangirl, so I naturally can't wait to meet anyone you're a fan of.
That's right. Let's get Nisha on.
Yeah.
And we're back.
We're back. I actually made myself nervous rapping WAP. I'm not doing that again. It took me like the whole intro to recover. I had performance anxiety.
It was so good. It was so good.
Rapping is one of my favorite pastimes. Let's let Nisha in.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. I have to throw my phone away because the group chat's popping off.
Oh, I know. Hello, Nisha.
Hello.
How are you? We're good. We're good. How are you?
Good. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were in Australia and I'm keeping you up later.
No, not at all. It's actually the middle of the day here. It's like lunchtime.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's not 12:30 at night.
No.
Even still, she would be game for it.
I would.
Yeah, Melanie's always game. It always kind of works out where she actually has to get up really early most of the time. So this is perfect for her. But yeah,
great.
We're happy to come on anytime to talk to you, Nisha.
That's very sweet.
Any place, anywhere, I'm ready.
That's really sweet. Thank you. I'm so excited that we could do this.
Yeah, we are too. I was just telling Melanie because we were just recording early right before we got on. We do like your intro and your bio and all that stuff, and I was telling her that hopefully I'm not gonna fangirl too hard because Dating Dr. Phil was one of my favorite reads of last year, and so I'm trying to play it cool. I hope I'm succeeding, but yeah,
that's very sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, so welcome to the show. How is everything going with you?
Good. I'm actually looking at book 2 in the Shakespeare series, the proofreading comments. Today I was working on them, so it's going good. The book is almost here.
I'm ready for it. I'm ready anytime.
I have to say, when I read your bio, I haven't read those yet, but when I read the If Shakespeare Was an Auntie series, you had me at hello with that. It sounds so creative.
Well, that's Dating Dr. Dill. Dating Dr. Dill is the first in the series. Yeah, it's Taming of the Shrew, and then this one is Much Ado About Nothing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So clever. Well, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where did it all start for you?
Sure. So I started writing and reading romance at a very young age. My origin story, my villain origin story is I grew up on Bollywood movies. As a South Asian. Bollywood is kind of part of your steady diet of media, and in my house they were always playing, and so Bollywood movies at the time that I was growing up always featured some sort of a love story. That was the common through line through the entire narrative, and I always assumed that every story had to have a romance. Growing up, I thought that's what movies were, and that's what books were. And so I started then going to my local library, and I found a series of like Nancy Drew and Hardy Boy super mysteries where they would like solve crimes together. And there was like one book where Nancy Drew and Frank Hardy like kissed under like a moonlit sky. And it was like I started writing fan fiction after that of like more of them together, because I thought Ned was a garbage boyfriend and never supported Nancy Drew's sleuthing like ambitions. And like Frank obviously was with the wrong girl. So here we were like writing Nancy Drew Frank Hardy fan fiction. And then the summer after my seventh grade, I was kind of sick and tired of like reading the same romances in my very small town library in the kids section. So I wandered into the adult romance section, and I didn't know like what any of it meant. But Nora Roberts' like book had just recently come out in paperback. And so I picked up Inner Harbor, which is the third book in her Chesapeake Bay series. I didn't know it was the third book. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know adult romance, but it was like some sort of like lightning strike, cosmic shift in the universe. Like that was my moment where I was like, I am going to do this for the rest of my life. And like I had a few detours along the way. So I went to college with the hope of like pursuing a professional career, because my family like I'm the first daughter of immigrant parents, and so the one of the biggest concerns that they always had was like, are you going to be able to support yourself? We don't have generational wealth, right? So we don't have money to be able to, like, if something goes wrong, will you have a skill set that will make sure that you can always make money? And so I took a little bit of a detour and I ended up going to law school. So I graduated from law school and I started working in New York City in corporate contracts, supporting marginalized communities with like small business contracts. And so that eventually led into a career in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I was working with the C-suite. I started doing executive coaching. I developed DE&I programs for telecom company, for large billion-dollar corporations. My last position was as a chief diversity officer for a global ad tech company. And before I left to write full time. And in this whole time period where I'm like law school, working, whatever, I ended up going back to school part-time to get my MFA in creative writing.
Wow.
And wrote my so-called Bollywood life as my thesis project for my school. And that was the book that eventually ended up selling to Random House Children's Books. It was my first trade book, and it was kind of like the start of like my publishing career. And so 5 years later, I have the Karma Map, which just came out last week, is my seventh book. And I have been writing full time for like 6 months. It's only been 6 months, but it feels like a lot longer than that.
That is amazing. Like,
Yeah.
7 books is wild. And 7 really great books too. I mean, I haven't obviously read them all, but I can just vouch for you and say that they're great books. Like, it's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's just what a wild and fun ride. And to know that, even throughout all of your schooling, kind of went back to the heart of yourself, which is story and storytelling. And and I love that you can now do it and support yourself financially. I think it's a beautiful, exciting thing.
Yeah. I mean, I still get pulled in every once in a while. Like, people will ask for consulting because like I have a very niche skill set that very few people have. So like I'll get calls, like panicked calls, like, we made a boo-boo, help us. And but and that's fine because I feel like supporting marginalized communities is like another part of my identity that is so, so important to me to like cultivate and like support. So and that always kind of plays a part in my books as well. So but for the most part, yeah, I'm like writing. I teach as a thesis advisor now for the same school I graduated as with my MFA. And I'm writing full time.
Yes.
Staying busy is what it sounds like.
Staying busy.
Yes, I also cannot believe another ex-lawyer in our midst. There is a thing about great writers having previously been lawyers. I am convinced it's some kind of like trial by fire that like extra epic writers go through.
I actually did an article for Romance Writers of America back in 2015 for their magazine about the number of attorneys who transitioned into like full-time writing. There's so many. I can name 30 off the top of my head.
Wow.
What did you find? Sorry, I'm curious now. What was your findings in your research?
I think it's because like in order to like make a case, you have to tell a story and you have to like believe that like your client deserves a happily ever after. So like I think that is kind of where the two careers have like a meeting point, that you have to tell a story, sell the story, and also like fight for this happily ever after like at the end of the day.
I love that.
Brilliant. I know. And it makes complete sense though. It really, really does. And I've noticed a lot of even agents we've had on have, swayed from the path of law, and now they're out here just killing it in the agent field as well. So shout out to all the lawyers who transitioned into thank goodness we needed your books and we need you. So it's fantastic. But speaking of books, let's talk about the Karma Map that came out last week. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. So the Karma Map is my mean girl redemption romance. It's about a character who, for the first time in her life, does something right, but the way she goes about doing it is like all wrong. And she like has to basically suffer the consequences of her actions. And in order to like, now that she's kind of like been bullied and been outcast for the rest of her senior year, she wants to start over and she wants to separate herself from the world that she thought was like the right fit for her. And so she goes back to India thinking no one would ever find her in this place. And of course, like, her past comes back to haunt her. And part of like the secret that she'd been hiding, the reason why she had been such a mean girl, is to kind of hide the fact that she grew up with this very toxic mother relationship. Her mom was a religious fanatic. Her older sister was kicked out of the house, who was really the only person who had ever protected her from like this fanaticism. The older sister had developed an opioid addiction, and the mother tried to like pray it away, and it never worked out. And so the sister was kicked out. And so she hadn't seen her sister for 4 years. She blames her mother. She blames her father. Like, she went through high school pretending everything was okay, that she had this perfect life, because she didn't want people to know like the ugly secrets. And when she gets to India, she realizes that like she's, instead of running away from it, like she's inadvertently run towards it. And so she kind of has to like unpack that. And she finds this guy who kind of helps her through it, but he has his own like history that he's exploring. He was adopted by 2 moms who love him dearly. They had gone on this trip way back in the day. Like, they had fallen in love on this trip. And when they had met on this trip, homosexuality was criminalized in India. So he is a bisexual Indian, and the way that homosexuality is perceived and accepted in India is very different at the time he's there from when his moms had first fallen in love. So he's kind of trying to develop this like photojournalism article for like this big scholarship. And he wants to kind of like explore his identity to really, do this project. So this is a very long-winded explanation of what happens in the car, but basically they fall in love.
I love it.
Yes, I thank you for this long-winded explanation because it's amazing.
Yeah,
Thank
I was
you.
just thinking you can tell you're a born storyteller because I like forgot we were recording and just got invested in the story you were telling. I clearly need to know what happens next. It sounds amazing, honestly. Like I'm so into that. I just read I'm Glad My Mom Died with
Oh
like
yeah.
kind of like ultra religious-y vibes. I love anything with a bit of threads. I've put some of that in my new work in progress. So I am very here for what you are speaking right now.
Great.
What was the inspiration behind this story?
So I mean, I have like a complicated relationship with religion myself. And I've been like pretty transparent about this online, but like my husband and I have been trying to have a kid for like 5 years. And after a while, you kind of lose faith a little bit. And so I was really struggling with my relationship with God, with ritualistic religion specifically, because like if you ever bring up like infertility, it's always like, oh, if you do this thing 3 times, like it'll help, or if you do this one thing or pray to this one particular way, it'll help. But like, does it really? And so that was kind of going on in my head. My grandmother was very sick, and she's kind of like the start of our immigrant story. My grandfather and her had sold everything and came to the US to start a better life for their kids. And, sometimes the only thing that they had was their connection to religion and their connection to God and their connection to the temple. My grandmother actually started like this branch of her like particular like belief, like religious, like it's kind of like Christianity and then Protestant and Episcopalian, like I don't know what they're called, branches, but
Yeah.
she started this like particular like branch in New York. Like she's the one who like actually like built it out of the like 3-bedroom apartment that they had in Queens. Like, and so and 3 bedroom sounds like such a luxury, but it was like this cramped place that 5 people lived in, right? So but like they that's where they started it. And so like knowing how religious she was and knowing like how karma was kind of like had impacted her life, and knowing how like I was wrestling with like, did I do something to cause this infertility? And like, is like religion real? And like, I mean, granted, like my therapist was super helpful and has been holding my hand the whole way, but like, I was still like wrestling with all of it. And so that kind of made its way into the book. And then the other piece of it is when I wrote my so-called Bollywood life, I was a very like, I had gotten my MFA, but it's your first book. So like you make mistakes. And I had written this character that was the only 2-dimensional character in the entire book. And she is the heroine of this book, of the Karma Map. She has like maybe 2 lines in my so-called Bollywood life, but like people did not like that I had created this like cartoon like mean girl character. So I wanted to redeem the mean girl. And so that is how she became the heroine of the Karma Map.
I got chills just listening to that. That is so cool. And I love that you can pull from your old stories and then also give those characters a voice and a kind of a chance to explain themselves. That's beautiful. And also, I mean, Melanie and I are both kind of in our own deconstruction, air like phase in our life where we're, changing our mindsets and growing in that sort of way. So
yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. It's very relatable. My grandparents and my parents immigrated to Australia from Croatia. And again, like I was also brought up in like a really insular Seventh Day Adventist environment, and like, yeah, it, especially when you've got the, like, my grandparents really only speak Croatian, so it does create a very insular world. And yeah, 100%, I appreciate you sharing it so openly, because it's something we love to talk about and something that we're going through ourselves. And I just love when we're all open about it, because you feel so much more seen. And like those kinds of philosophies, like I remember people saying that stuff about anxiety disorder to me, like, just pray about it, like you've done something wrong. And I love that we're challenging these things now, and I love that we're writing about these things. So yeah, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We need it. We need more authors just to be open and, you know, and understanding sort of the idea and the inspiration for their books. I think it's really valuable and important, and
Yes.
you know, it's a really special thing, and it's one of the reasons why we love having authors on, is just to kind of dig in deeper. What would you say was the difference between writing this book and your other books?
So, I think like the more I write YA, the more like open and in touch with like a particular theme that I get. Like my so-called Bollywood life, I really wanted to answer the question of like, do people have the ability to kind of control their own fate and their own destiny? And it was a very light touch. Like I didn't really dive deep into it, but it was a question that the characters kind of wrestled with. And then in Radha and Jay's Recipe for Romance, which is kind of like the follow-up to my so-called Bollywood life, like they were kind of talking about like what happens if you've like all of the decisions for your future have been made for you, and you have to kind of accept the consequences of them before your future really even begins, you know? And so like that was really the question of like that book. And then like that one I did dive a little bit deeper, but the karma map is truly like sinking into the feeling of like, is this really something that I deserve? And is karma really something that like I caused this to happen to me? Or is this something where like I can control like good things happening in my future if I continue to change my behavior? Like, what is karma and how does it impact my life going forward? And so I like, these are like the questions I want to talk about and I want to answer in the stories that I write, because I feel like, one, it's the best way for me to continue to stay engaged while I write the book without getting bored. And the second thing is like, because I feel like as like contributing to the growing body of work that features South Asian characters and that are written by South Asian authors, I want to be able to like give these like very large topics that we sometimes have conversations about at, like on Zoom meetings or on Twitter or like, you know, during dinner parties, and that they're just not enough of for other people to feel like they can relate to it too, right? Like, so, you know, this is my way of like kind of memorializing a lot of the discussions I feel like we have that just aren't, you know, currently in book form.
Yes. For this as well. I'm just getting more and more excited just listening to you and just talk about your books and the reason why behind them. Now, this isn't on our questions list, but I wanted to ask, did you ever feel like a pressure to not have your characters be, you know, represent you, if you know what I mean, to have
Yeah.
characters in the lead? Because I remember when I first started writing, you know, my whole thing was like, we need more Latina characters in the lead. And a beta reader way back in the day was like, you know, you'll probably make more money and sell your book if your characters were white. And you know, I was like, the audacity, you know, and I had never thought about it, and it was never a thing I cared about. I was like, I don't care if it doesn't sell, I'm not going to change it. But did you ever feel that sort
Yeah.
of ridiculous?
Yeah, no, 100%. The first agent that I got when I was in law school said that like they signed me on because they love my concept. And then this is like why you always ask questions when you sign an agent. Like I was so excited, I just signed with her. And then like after I signed with her, she's like, listen, I need you to revise this so the hero is white because I'm not going to sell it unless the hero is white. And like I started going through revisions and I'm like, what am I doing? And it just like that didn't work out. That I ended up leaving.
I have like angry chills all over, like my skin is prickling in rage that these are the kinds of like, I can't believe
But
like
like
a human says that. Like it's
but
so
it's like not even agents. Like in 2020, like 3 years ago, my editor at Random House made a comment about the cover of my book, and I know that they didn't have ill intention. Like I know they didn't have an ill intention. They were very, in fact, they were very offended that I called them out, thinking that like why would I even assume that they had ill intention? But basically, like they said, we want normal people clothes on the cover,
No,
not like
fuck.
ethnic clothes. And so like, I was like, listen, I just want to call your attention to the language you're using because these are normal clothes for me.
right.
Yeah.
And so like what you're saying is like Western wear, Western attire is what you want. And like she got very offended that I even like brought it up. But like, at the same time, it's like you made a mistake and like you still are standing behind your statement, you know? Like that's the other thing.
As a former,
Yeah.
as a former people pleaser, that's my red flag. Somebody getting upset at you because you got hurt. I'm like, excuse me? That is not okay.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry you
I
had to
know.
deal with that. That's
Well,
such bullshit.
and now, I mean, you look at back and then your career, how it's grown, and you have all of these books. So it's kind of like well,
Yeah.
fuck you, I did what I wanted and I'm doing it well. So, there is a market for it and we need it. And, speaking of all these books, are you on different deadlines? How are you juggling, balancing all of these amazing stories?
I'm not juggling it well. It's happening. I mean, I think like I'm the kind of person who because I think it's because I went to law school, to be honest with you. I have like a very conservative outlook on my career. Like I want to be able to have multiple streams of income, multiple opportunities instead of one opportunity at a time. But to be honest with you, I think for my mental health, it would have probably been good if I just did one opportunity at a time. So I actually have really fantastic supportive editors now who like are aware of how I operate. And they all are willing to work with me on my schedules and my timelines to make sure that I can get everything that I need done like one after another. So my deadlines are very tight, but yes, like they're all kind of like sometimes overlapping. So I have, for example, proofreading edits for my adult romance today. On Friday, I have developmental edits due for another book. In 6 weeks, I have the first draft of another book due. In 3 months, I have another draft of a book due. So like they're one after another.
Wow.
Staying busy as usual again. Staying busy.
It's comforting to hear though that like there's been some conversation had to like, yeah, like prioritize mental health, because it is another thing we talk about a lot on the podcast. Like we're only human, and like you can only draw so much from your mind before you need a break. And like it, yeah, having those kinds of like conversations and forcing the mental health needs into the industry, because yeah, like we can only do so much, right? And
Yeah. I mean, I screwed up so terribly last year. Like I remember like telling my husband, like, I don't know if I can do this. There was maybe 3 months where I had not had a single day off
Wow.
in a row.
no.
And like I was so burned out. I was so tired. I was like jittering. Like I was like my hands were shaking all the time. And so, because I was working a full-time job too still. So like, and I would have calls at 5:30 in the morning because it was a global company. So like we had teams in Singapore, we had teams in Europe, we had teams in South America, we had teams on the West Coast. And like being so close to leadership, like all the way at the top, you have to make yourself available to multiple teams in multiple regions. So, I was doing that. I was writing Dating Dr. Dill was coming out at the same time. Dating Dr. Dill like exploded. I did not expect it to do as well as it did. And like that took me by surprise because all of a sudden I'm getting like requests for like articles, interviews, like like conferences, things that I had done in the past, but it was coming fast and quickly, and I just like could not figure out how to manage it all. So like absolutely mental health is so important to manage because
Yeah.
let me tell you, like I can't write as good of a book as I can if I'm not in the right mindset for it.
Mm.
And how do you find yourself dealing with it, like with burnout and, keeping your mental health on track?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not great at it, but it's definitely something that it's like a conversation topic that I have regularly. I think when I left my job, the first thing I did was I decided to take one day off a week, like a full like reset day. Do not open my laptop at all. Don't look at anything at all. And so that is something that I had never done before. Like I had not done for maybe 10 years. Like so it was actually like a little hard to commit to, but I definitely did that. And then the power of saying no,
Mm.
which is not something I'm great at still, but I am trying very hard to continue to like just gauge how much time and effort and energy something will take. And if it does not feed my overall purpose, to say no.
Yeah, I think honestly, it's something I've been learning myself as well. And it's so important because, like, if you just say yes, trying to be nice, but then you can't fulfill everything anyway, and you wind up disappointing them, you wind up burning yourself out.
Yeah.
I think the power of no is underrated, and I think we all, I don't know, was there some book or something that was like, just say yes?
Yeah, it was Shonda Rhimes. Like Shonda Rhimes
What,
had like
Sean?
she had the year of yes. And like I remember so many like it was like girl boss, like women's like institute, like leadership summits. They would all like be like it was what's her name? Lean In. First it was like all the like lean in conversation, like, oh, you just need to get a seat at the table and lean in, say, and then like it was Shonda Rhimes, say yes to everything. It's like, okay, as someone who's literally giving these leadership talks for years in corporate America, I can tell you that is the worst advice you can possibly get. It's because like the expectation for women is already to do more, and you're just encouraging them to even go beyond their current bandwidth. So like I think there's strength in being able to say no and to understand that like, yeah, okay, maybe you'll lose out on this opportunity, but that does not mean that this opportunity was really going to further you like so much along in your quest for whatever it is you're trying to get.
Yes, it's the
I'm
year.
here for this conversation.
Yeah.
In the year 2023, we're not doing that anymore. Like
No.
Year of no.
yeah, we've gone through a whole ass, pandemic. We're still going through it. Like we can say no. I think
Yes.
we're there.
Say no. You do not need to go out on a Sunday night at 11 o'clock at night. Like you do not need to finish that paper like at 3 in the morning. Just say no.
Stand behind this statement.
I stand behind it so hard. Like it is hard because you want, you mean well, you want to be like the people pleaser comes out. I've started saying no to like acquaintance parties that I was like, I should go because such and such, they're so nice. And then lately I'm like, You go there, you don't know anyone, nobody talks, and you wind up going into podcast mode and trying to be friendly to everyone, and you're burnt out. And then you wonder why. So it's the year of no.
I will say, like, of course, like all of these things have nuance, right? So, like, some people will often use no as a shield to, like, kind of as in and like let fear win. There is like definitely a case by case situation here, but at the same time, like, it's like don't take no off the table is really what it should be.
Ooh, I like that. I like
so
that a lot. Yeah.
And you're
That's
so right. It's all about nuance. Maybe that's where the original philosophy of just say yes came from, because we all have that like fear response to doing like a lot of this stuff. So it probably meant well, but yeah, like we'll taper back our yes. I love it so much. Oh, so you write both YA and adult. Do you find it hard to switch between voices?
I don't. I think my editors are like working overtime when I switch between the two, because like oftentimes they'll like flag stuff and say, I think this is a little too mature, or I think this is like a little too immature. So but personally when I'm drafting, I don't feel uncomfortable with like the switch, and I think it's because I usually approach each with a different mindset. So when I'm writing YA, I'm focusing on like what are the possibilities and the fear for the future, and then when I'm writing adult, it's fear for making choices for their future that they think are wrong.
Definitely.
Yes.
I want to ask, because I see our time is dwindling, but one of my favorite questions is always to ask, looking back at all you've accomplished, what advice would you give a younger version of yourself before you started this wild journey?
Don't go to law school.
Period.
No, I mean, it partly in jest, partly seriously. I think that like law school was a fear response, but I mean, I have to say I learned so much in law school. I learned that I could do so much because of law school. But I think that like there's a balance between like making sure that you can make money to sustain yourself, and also like completely like setting yourself back in terms of like how much you can accomplish because you spent the first whatever how many years like doing something that is absolutely separate from where you should be going. So like I would say, like law school is more expensive than like the cost it would take to like live out your dream. And so, I'm still paying for law school, and I'm pretty sure if I had just gone straight into like getting my PhD in English through a fully funded program or something, I would not have to worry about this.
You heard it here, listeners. Do not go to law school.
or do not do a teaching degree like me. I'm just saving my HEX debt for another day when we don't even think about that. We don't mention that. Now, I want to ask, because I feel like yours is going to be a cracker. Do you have a favorite quote that you'd like to share with us on the podcast?
Oh, like from any form of literature?
Anything, or like something that like inspires you day to day, like.
Yeah. I have a few. So there's this one spoken word poetry like TED Talk that I am obsessed with. And of course, like on the spot, I'm forgetting it. But it is by Sarah. Oh my gosh, Sarah and Phil. God. Yep, Sarah and Phil K. And it's called When Love Arrives. So it's like the poem's called When Love Arrives. So that is always inspiring to me. I'm sorry. Sarah and Phil K's When Love Arrives is not a TED Talk. It's just a recorded YouTube of like the spoken word piece that they did together, and it's beautiful and it shows how love is messy. The TED Talk is it's Bob McFerrin's Watch Me Play the Audience, and it's like a 3-minute TED Talk, and it's about like the power of music. But that's also inspiring. And then the last thing that's inspiring is from a book that is terrible, but I love how like I can take the quote and apply it to something way more beautiful and magical. So the book is Catch-22, terrible book, but the quote is, let's take a drive into the middle of nowhere with a packet of Marlboro Lights and talk about our lives. So
that was, I mean, what a perfect way to end the conversation, with a romantic storyteller quote.